Ladies and gentlemen, it is 6:30, and I am so thankful that you've joined us this evening. My name is Denise Alder-Goodhertz. I'm your program quality director, and I wanted to say thank you to Romero Jimenez for being the District 39 Chief
Hi, Mike.
Judge,
I'm in a Toastmasters training.
for offering his services to provide this training to us this evening, and to Kathy O'Ray, Program Quality Project Manager. I'm testing out the transcript option. If you find the closed captioning troubling, send me a private message and I'll turn it off. But we're going to give this a try this evening. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I turn over the virtual meeting to your District 39 Chief Judge Romero. Yay!
Thank you, Madam Program Quality Director. It's a pleasure to be here once again this evening with everyone. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and spending a couple of hours of your time in order to be a better contest functionary, whether it's in the role of judge, contest chair, or another of the important roles that make up a successful contest. We do appreciate, I'm seeing some familiar faces in the crowd, and that always makes it easier to present when you have a friendly audience. I will start off by asking if everybody can see the screen in front of them with the header of the slide presentation. Awesome. I'm also going to ask at this time if everybody would be so kind as to mute themselves. What we'll be doing over the course of the evening is I'll be sharing information from the slides. I will break at certain points to take any questions based on the sections that we cover. Kathy will also be monitoring the chat, and so that's another opportunity for you to be able to ask any questions by fielding those, and Kathy will either hold those questions and then answer them during the mini breaks that we have. She may also signal me or jump in to add to a point that I've shared. So by all means, do not be afraid to ask questions as we move through the program. Most of this, I expect, will be refresher for many of you who've participated in contests, and it's just a good opportunity to kind of make sure to get those ducks, and we not only get the butterflies in order, but we get ducks in order to make sure that everything is lined up and that we've thought about everything and everybody as we're going through a contest. At the end of the day, we want our contest to be successful. We want our contestants to have a positive experience so that they'll come back and compete again. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into our presentation. So the title of this is Organizing Speech Contests. It's an overview of all the different elements starting to and leading up through a successful contest. So why do we compete? A good question. Obviously, it presents a challenge and a growth for the competitors. Competitors want to improve and be better communicators, and they do it by having a chance to both compete against and see what the best of the best in the district are doing and how they're competing. We consider this to be an educational, inspirational, and it's entertaining for the audience. How many times have you been to a contest, or how many times have people said, oh my gosh, that guy or that gal is just so good. I want to be like them when I grow up. Man, they speak so well. My goodness, if only I could be half that good. This is where that inspiration comes from. We're like, yeah, I want to be better. I want to be like that person. And we're not trying to be like that person, but that person is inspiring us to be the best that we can be. And that is a real benefit from a contest. It is leadership development. There is nothing that makes you a leader faster and better than being involved in putting together a contest, all the different components. I know that Linda and I have shared quite a bit of time working through some contests and all the last minute logistics and challenges that it presents. And nothing makes you grow up faster and develops your leadership and communication skills faster than facilitating a contest. Great opportunity for networking. You think you know people in Toastmasters until you compete or otherwise put together a contest, and then you get an opportunity to connect with a lot of people, not only in the district, but outside of the district. So it's just a great network opportunity. And believe it or not, it really is fun. We're always like, oh my goodness, another contest is coming up. But at the end of the day, once we're done with all the contests, we're like, woohoo! You know what? That was a lot of fun. Let's do it again. And there's an opportunity once again in the following year to do it again. So what is our contest calendar? We have a fall season, which typically is made up of a humorous speech and table topics. We did not do table topics in the fall of this year, but we did have rounds of humorous speeches. And in the spring season, you typically have your evaluation and your international speeches, and those contests are just started last month, and we are right into that season now. So what constitutes an international speech? It's a 5 to 7 minute speech. It must be in English. The subject is chosen by the contestant. It must be substantially original. What does that mean? That means that 25% or less of the speech may be devoted to quoting, paraphrasing, or referencing another person's content. However, any quoted or paraphrased or referenced content has to be identified during the presentation of the speech. And in this particular contest, the contestants can remain in the contest room throughout the contest. What is the eligibility in order to compete in an international speech contest? The contestant has to be a paid member of a club, area, division, and district in which he or she is competing. They have to be in a club in good standing. In addition to that, they have to have earned certificates of completion in levels 1 and 2 of any path in the Pathways experience, or if they're still in the legacy status, they have to have completed at least 6 speech projects in the Competent Communication Manual. And I'm seeing people taking notes, so I'm just taking a moment to let people be able to do that. The evaluation contest is 2 to 3 minutes. And what happens there is that all contestants evaluate a test speech, which is a 5 to 7 minute speech. We've heard test speeches referred to as model speeches, as target speeches. So you'll hear different terms, but the official term for it is a test speech. The test speech is given at the start of the contest. The test speaker should not be from the same club as any contestant. Sometimes logistically that cannot be helped, but again, that is the criteria, is that it should not be from the same club. We do not announce any speech objectives, projects, or anything that in any way identifies the test speaker. We don't say that, for example, the test speaker is working on their whatever goal or project that they're working on, or anything that identifies their skill level in Toastmasters. Notes can be taken on an evaluation contest notes form, that is form 1177 in Toastmasters International, or it can be taken on a blank sheet of paper. And we'll be showing later on where all these different documents can be found. After the test speech is given, the contestants, along with the Sergeant at Arms, are moved to the contestant breakout room. They're given 5 minutes to prepare their notes. After 5 minutes, no further notes are taken, and the contestants are then monitored by the Sergeant at Arms. The contestants are then taken to the contest room one at a time in the speaking order that was chosen at the start of the contest. The notes are returned, and that's actually in the case of a physical contest. In this case, in the case of an online contest, each contestant is able to refer to their notes when they're ready to evaluate. And once they've given their evaluation, the contestants can then stay in the room, in the contest room, and watch the other contestants. So by default, the very first evaluation contestant will not be able to see the presentation of any other of the contestants. What is the eligibility to compete in an evaluation contest? The contestant has to be a paid member of a club in an area, division, and district in which he or she is competing, and the club must be in good standing. Who is not eligible to compete in any contest? Anyone who is serving as a judge beyond the club level. So whether that's a chief judge, a voting judge, or a tiebreaker judge, they cannot compete beyond the club, or they cannot compete if they're serving as a judge beyond the club level. District officers are not eligible to compete. Anyone who is campaigning for a district officer for the next Toastmaster year is not eligible to compete. Anyone who is serving in another role in the same contest, they can't compete. Anyone who is presenting at the contest event. So let's say that the contest happens to be part of a conference or another event. Anyone who is presenting is not able to compete. And the rationale behind that is that all of these different opportunities present an opportunity for the contestant to get extra exposure or to get extra status, potential status as a result of these roles, and therefore they're not able to compete in the contest. If contestants are members of more than one club, they can compete in all of their club contests, but they can only compete in one area contest. Any questions on any of that before we move on to changes in the rule book? Hearing and seeing none.
Just say, I don't have a question or a comment, but it's related to the live captioning. If you find it distracting, you can click on live transcript and hide the subtitle.
Thank you, Denise. So here are the rule changes for 21-22. Some of you may have seen this take place during the fall humorous speech contest. In terms of eligibility, a contestant has to be eligible at all levels of any contest. What does that mean? That if at any level it was determined that the contestant was ineligible to compete at any previous level, then the contestant must be disqualified. Even if that ineligibility is discovered at a later level and it's been corrected, if the contestant was ineligible at the time that they competed in a previous contest, then they must be disqualified. So that's in your rule for 21-22. A recap of who is ineligible. So district officers or candidates for elected positions for the following upcoming term. Candidates for elected district leader positions for the upcoming term are ineligible to serve as test speakers at the area, division, or district contests. So that's in your rule 2. So you may think, oh, okay, well, I'm not competing in the contest, but I can still help out and be a test speaker. Not if you are a candidate for a upcoming leader position. And we talked about the fact that, again, once again, essentially people who are contest functionary, a judge in any fashion, or a presenter are not eligible to compete in contests. In terms of selecting your contestants, each club that is in good standing can choose its contestant for the area contest however it wishes. It could just appoint someone, it could flip a coin, whatever method it wishes to choose outside of a regular contest. However, if the club decides to hold a contest, it has to comply with all of the rules in the rule book, and the results are final. Contests do have to be held at the area, division, and district levels. Let's say that you have a contest in which you only have one contestant. If that is the case, and we actually had one of those last fall, the contest still has to be held, and the contestant can be disqualified if they don't meet the eligibility, originality, or timing requirements. So all rules still apply, even if it's only one contestant. And chances are we may have at least one of those or more that take place in the spring. So for general procedure, winners have to be announced prior to the end of the event. And if there are multiple contests, and in several instances, you'll have typically at the division level where you'll have multiple areas competing, each contest has to be adjourned prior to the beginning of the next contest. Typically, the way that will be stated is that now concludes, for example, the Area 41 contest. We will now proceed to the Area 42 contest. And that's perfectly acceptable. That's a traditional way that we've concluded or adjourned one contest and moved on to the other one. So if the contest chair doesn't, or Toastmaster doesn't specifically say adjourn, that's okay, as long as it's clearly delineated that the previous contest has been completed and now we're moving to the next contest. That's perfectly fine. Protest and disqualification. So protests are limited to eligibility, originality, and this is a relatively new element that was introduced in the previous Toastmaster year, referring to another contestant's speech at the same contest. The contestants are prohibited from doing that. You can refer to other individuals' content, but you can't refer to another contestant's speech at that contest. So those are the categories under which a protest can be filed, and it can only be lodged or filed by voting judges or contestants. A tie-breaking judge cannot lodge a protest. And the protests have to be lodged with the chief judge or the contest chair, and that has to happen prior to the adjournment or completion of the contest. So the rulebook also refers to speech contest checklists. A distinction between this and the rules is that these are checklists for the contest chair, and they are strongly suggested, but they are not required. So again, if a contest chair chooses not to follow these, that's within their right to do so. However, again, Toastmasters strongly suggest that you follow this when putting together your checklists and the elements of your contest. So for the contestants briefing, the contest chair, the Toastmasters, should verify the presence of all the contestants, including those who may be on their way, just so that they know who's there or who's coming. And ideally, they should verify the pronunciation of their names. People love the sound of their names, and they can't stand when their names are butchered. And I, for one, would strongly encourage everyone to make sure that their contest chair or Toastmaster takes just a few moments to go ahead and ask each contestant to pronounce their name. And at that point, the contestant may also give them an easier alternative. So anyone want to take a shot? And if you already know this individual and know how to pronounce their name, then no fair, don't do it. But anybody want to take a shot at pronouncing the example name that I put on the screen? So you take a look at it and you go, do I pronounce all the vowels? Do I pronounce the consonants? What do I do here? And so what had happened is that this is a young man who competed for 2 consecutive years in the District 39 evaluation contest. And he started off in Division D in the areas. And I think he was area, I want to say 42. He was a UC Davis student, and so was a member of Davis Town and Gowners. and so competed and made it all the way through to the district level. But at that first area contest, the Toastmaster just absolutely butchered his name beyond any recognition. And he just said, "Oh boy, I'm gonna butcher this," and then proceeded to do so. And I was like, "Ay, ay, 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 no!" I really wish that they had taken the time to do it. And so I asked him afterwards, "What's your name?" He says, "They can just call me Nara Raghu." I go, "Yeah, but what's your name and how do you pronounce it?" And so it was Narasimhan Raghunathan. I go, "Oh, Narasimhan Raghunathan. That's easy. Okay." And I always made it a point to make sure, and then I tried to, anytime I was involved in a contest in which he participated, I would take a moment to coach the Toastmaster in terms of how to pronounce their name. And he didn't place, but did make it all the way to the district finals his first year, which was great. And then the following year he took it and ended up winning it. And so a great story for perseverance. And by the end of the second contest, I can assure you that everybody was saying his name correctly. And he's now a successful attorney in North Carolina. So doing quite well for himself. And I'm sure that his Toastmaster experience paid off. But again, just the pronunciation of a name is truly important. So I took a little bit more time on that because I just consider it very important. So during the contest, it's a good idea to make sure to inform the audience that the contestants have been briefed, that the judges have been briefed. And I've seen this done in a couple of different ways where either the contest chair or the Toastmaster will just take the opportunity to share that with the audience and tell them that both the contestants and judges have been briefed. I will also often see the contest chair or the Toastmaster ask the chief judge if the judges have been briefed. So both ways are perfectly acceptable. And they're also telling the audience that the photographs are not permitted during speeches. And it may be in a later slide. I thought I added it perhaps here, and I probably added it in another slide, but I'm going to take this opportunity to also let everybody know that recording is not permitted as well. The district will be recording the speeches, but anyone else is not permitted to record the speeches during the contest. Also, the contest chair, the Toastmaster, may want to inform the audience that the contestants select their own topics. Therefore, the contents of the speeches may contain language, ideas, or beliefs that for some audience members, they may find it sensitive or perhaps a little uncomfortable. But again, this is something that, again, a briefing to this effect may be helpful so that the audience can be prepared for that. For the judges, it's a good idea to instruct judges to either sit close to the contestants in the case of an in-person contest or close to the screen in the event that there's a disturbance or a technical malfunction. We also have a great resource. This is known as the online speech contest exception. And so these are all of the rules that apply to online speeches, including what to do in the case of technical difficulties. And the reason that this is referred to as an exception is because the rule book specifically states all contests will be in person. Unless, of course, you have a worldwide pandemic, which then requires you to have an online speech contest exception. And that's what we've had. And so again, this is just a great resource. And the link there is below. This link is also on our District 39 resource page, contest resource page, as well as on Toastmasters International. So again, it's just a great resource for judges and contest functionaries. So what does the contest calendar typically consist of? Starts off with the club contest. And once again, you can actually hold a club contest, or you can appoint your representatives from the club to move on to the next level. And those start off the contest calendars both in the fall and in the spring. From the club, you move to the area level. Area level contest should be taking place now. So last month is when club contest should have been starting, and representatives from the clubs were selected and appointed, and we are now moving into area contests. So the representatives from the clubs move on to the area. Highest placing representatives from the area contests then move on to division, and there's a total of 10 divisions, I believe, still in our district. And then finally, typically as part of the district conference, you hold the district level finals for the various contests. For the international speech, it does not end there. The winner of the district contest for the international speech can be considered for the next levels. And what happens is their speech is submitted for consideration for the regional quarterfinals. And if they move beyond that to the international semifinals, and finally, the very best speeches as determined by Toastmasters International get to compete for the World Championship of Public Speaking. And I actually have a colleague that was a member of my home club, Robert McCauley, many years ago, who actually got to go all the way to that level. And so it's rare indeed, but it is possible for someone's humble beginnings at any one of our clubs to make it all the way to the World Championship of Public Speaking. One of the decisions that the district makes early on is to decide whether areas and divisions who have 4 clubs or fewer in an area or 4 areas or fewer in the division to be able to send more than one contestant to the next level. And that decision was made and confirmed by the district earlier this year. So just confirming that for area who have 4 clubs or fewer, the 2 highest placed contestants who are available to compete at the area level may go through and represent each club. So each club can have up to 2 representatives at the area level. And that also applies if a club charters during that period, they can also send 2 contestants. And then consequently, same with the division. If the division has 4 areas or fewer, each area can send the 2 highest placed contestants from their area onto the division level. So how do we start preparing for this contest? Well, we assign a contest chair. That contest chair could be the area director, the division director. We've seen that done, or they can appoint someone to be their director. At the club level, it's typically the vice president of education, but that individual can in turn assign that role to somebody else. You want to set your contest date. You want to create your contest agenda. You need to decide, is it going to be a single or a multiple contest? Again, typically you'll see this at the area and division level where you might have multiple clubs or multiple areas competing. And so that distinction needs to be made so you can plan and adjust your agenda accordingly. Particularly at the area level and above, get on the district calendar. I think we've done a great job this year. I believe, Kathy, all of the area contests and the division contests have already been scheduled, and I haven't seen too many conflicts this year. So a lot of times people will all try to get on a certain Friday or a certain Saturday, and then people can't find people to work their contest because everybody picked the same time. So I think people did a great job of scheduling their contests in advance. So we're looking forward to a really good and smooth contest season. And then get the word out. You want people to know about your contest. You want people to compete. You want people to help out. And so market that contest, not only through the district, which has great resources, but through all your local entities and media resources. Get the word out about your contest. And then finally, you go ahead and start building your team. So what does the team look like? It consists of that contest chair. You have to have a Toastmaster to be your master of ceremonies. You have to have a chief judge. And because all of the contests are going to be online this year, you should have a Zoom master. Of course, you have to have contestants. You should have voting judges. You should have a tiebreaker judge. You'll need contest timers. You should have ideally 2, a primary and a backup. 2 ballot counters that works with your chief judge to tabulate the votes. And in the case of an evaluation contest, you want to have your sergeant at arms and your test speaker. At the club level, you should have ideally at least 5 voting judges when it's practical. All the roles are the same for the area level contests. The distinction there is that you should have an equal number of voting judges from each club or a minimum of 5. A question came up as to what if those 5 happen to be from the same area. The rules are silent on that particular issue, so you could conceivably have that, but again, ideally, your judges, as much as possible, should be equally distributed amongst the clubs at the area level. And at this level, you cannot have any doubling up of roles. So someone who's a judge cannot also be a timer or a ballot counter, and certainly not be the test speaker. For the division level, it's all the same roles. However, the number of voting judges increases from 5 to 7. And once again, you have an equal number of voting judges from each area or a minimum of 7. Once again, there's no doubling up of roles. The big distinction here between this and the area level, a voting judge cannot be from the same club as a competitor. So if someone is asked to be a judge and then someone in their club makes it all the way to the division level, they cannot be a voting judge for that contest. Any questions on building the team so far? Okay. Here's a really spiffy or nifty, depending on which word you like, and you may like another word, but Kathy put this together for us. This is just such a great tool. And of course, what we did is we complimented someone else that gave us the framework, and we just built on it. And that's what we do here at Toastmasters. We flatter the heck out of other people who do a great job by copying what they do. And so this is a great resource. It's a logistics sheet. This is available at the District 39 contest resources page. And it gives you an opportunity to identify all of the different team roles and responsibilities that are part of the contest and do a status check to make sure that, oh, okay, I've got my contest chair taken care of. I've got all the different roles. I've got my judges lined up. And you can start checking off to make sure that they've been trained, that they have all their resources. So it's just a great tool. Highly recommend that you check it out. You don't have to do this. You can kind of come up with your own variety of this, but we have found that this is a great tool for you to use to be able to keep track of all the different moving pieces in your contest. So highly encourage you to check it out at minimum. Thank you, Kathy, for putting this together for us. So it's highly encouraged that your contestants review the rule book. Just let them know where they can find it, where it is, and good for them to know what it is that are the things that they don't want to be disqualified on, and to make sure that they're eligible. We need to advise the contestants that they need to complete 3 documents, and that is the certificate of eligibility and originality. So they are then professing that they are in fact eligible and that their speech is original. They complete the contest profile for the Toastmaster so that the Toastmaster has good material with which to interview them when he does interview or she interviews the contestants. And because our contestants are being recorded, we wish for them to complete the photo video release. And as you can see there, all of the Toastmaster International form numbers are next to the actual forms themselves. These can be found either on the District 39 resource page or on the district, not the district, but the International Toastmasters resource page as well. And then these should be emailed, PDF, faxed, however the case can be, to the contest chair prior to the contest. So a very important portion of the team, obviously, are your judges. And probably the one, certainly one big challenge in the contest season is finding your judges and finding good judges, people who are available, willing, and qualified to be able to judge. And so a great resource continues to be internal, particularly those of you who are directors at the area and division level or a chief judge. You have the ability of having several clubs and areas from which to work. And so start off internally and work to see who is within your clubs and areas who's willing to be a judge. Once again, have equal clubs and areas within your area as allowed per rule book. And encourage clubs and areas to share resources. One of the things that I used to do when I was the Division D director, I would have, for example, I would typically have members of Area 41 judge for Area 42 and vice versa, and then mix Area 43 and 44 in there. So I had them all each share resources so that you didn't have people within the same area judging their own contestants. And so by sharing those resources, it allowed us to really maximize our internal resources and be able to put on good contests and still comply with all of the rules that Toastmaster dictates for area level contests and division level contests. If you're not able to find any of your, all of your resources internally, then externally, there's networking. The more that you participate in division level and district contests, all of the DECMs and all of the great trainings that are put together are great opportunities for network to get to know other Toastmasters and say, by the way, are you available to help out for my contest? And if you do so, I'm happy to reciprocate. I have committed myself 1,001 times over, and people would do the same thing. And you just develop this group of individuals who are just happy to help out. And this is the one thing that in my close to 30 years in Toastmasters, there's never been a shortage of people, of core people particularly, who are just always happy to help out when they can. And that's been one of the great pluses of Toastmasters. So the network is there. So again, take advantage, participate in as many district events as you can, work with your comrades, because you'll find out that there's a lot of great people within Toastmasters who are happy to help and could use a helping hand in return. And so I just mentioned the district training and the officer training, as well as the DECMs and district events that are put on as great resources. Another great resources that is in progress now, and we think it's going to be a super, super help, is the judges survey. And so the district is putting out a survey in order to create a database of potential judges for people to draw from. Kathy and or Denise, I'm not sure if that's out yet. Can one of you mind giving us just a quick update on where that stands?
Denise will be sending it out tomorrow, I believe.
Great.
Thank you.
So we're looking forward to that, because that's going to make it a lot easier to be able to find judges. So in order to be a judge, there are some eligibility requirements. At the club level, to be a club level judge, you have to be a paid member. Pretty simple. At the area level, you have to be a paid member for 6 months or more. So you just can't be like a brand new member in order to be a judge at the area level. And at the area level, you have to have earned your pathway certificate, level 2 or higher. Or you, once again, if you're a legacy Toastmaster, still have to have completed 6 speech projects in the CC manual. And really that latter one applies because everyone is in Pathways now. So it's really, if you have not completed level 2 of Pathways yet, then you can fall back on the completion of the 6 projects in the CC manual. At the division level, it's the same requirements as at the area level to be a judge. However, once again, cannot be a member of the same club as a contestant. This is the classic contest kit. And as what you can see pictured there are award certificates. So I want to make sure that we have the appropriate awards for our contest winners. Certificates of participation. I've always considered this to be a great tool for not only the contestants, but this is along with certificates of appreciation for all of your contest functionaries. People are taking their time to volunteer and help you put on a successful contest. So please use those. And you have your evaluation ballots, your evaluation notes form, as well as your ballot counter forms, your timer forms, and your notification of winners form. And I believe there's also a notification of results form here as well. These resources are available once again, both on the district resource page as well as the TI contest page. So all of the other contest functionaries, in order for them to be eligible, they have to be a paid member of a club in good standing. Any questions on the contest functionaries, roles, eligibility? I started seeing this last year for the online contest, and I think that this is a great tool which strongly encourage everyone to take advantage of and do. And that is a contest pre-briefing. And so what happens is the contest chair pulls the contestants and contest functionaries together prior to the contest and actually gives them an opportunity to go over what to expect in the contest, and even has the opportunity to provide what we would call a dry run or a practice run for the contest in order to work out particularly the technical issues. So if you're planning on doing this, you should provide a briefing date, time, and Zoom link for the contestants and the functionaries. At that pre-briefing, you'll cover the contest date, the time, and make sure that everybody has the Zoom link for the actual contest itself. That will be your opportunity to remind everybody, if they haven't done so, your contestants, to complete and submit their speaker profiles, their eligibility forms, and their photo release forms. At that point, you'll do an overview of the roles and the process and answer any questions that the contestants may have. If one or more of your contestants indicate that they have a disability or need some type of accommodation in the form of a sensory impairment aid, as for an example, to get an audio signal in a case of somebody who is visually impaired, that's the opportunity to identify that and make those preparations so you have it plenty of time for the contest. And as I mentioned, this is an opportunity to do a practice run. So in this practice run, this is where you would establish the standard speaking areas and where you could work with the Zoom master to maximize the audio and visual quality. So in order to do that, your contestants are going to want to actually practice in the same area in which they're going to be competing to make sure that they're using the same devices and surroundings so that they can prepare to be successful in that same environment. So they don't want to deviate from where they practiced on the day of the contest. It's an opportunity to check lighting and audio settings, as well as visual settings. It's an opportunity for the contestants to pin the timer. And this is where the contest chair and the Zoom master can go over the online technical issues protocols.
Romero, excuse me for the interruption. We did have a question here that was on an item before. So now that we've finished this slide, I wanted to bring it to your attention.
Go for it.
It says, okay, so Nancy asked, question on time as a Toastmaster. So the eligibility to be a judge, is that 6 months currently in Toastmasters or 6 months ever? And her example is a person rejoins Toastmasters but was a Toastmaster for years. Does the clock start over?
I will confirm that for you, but in terms of what I understand from the rule book, it does not distinguish we're starting over. Once you've hit those 6 months, you've met the requirement for having been in Toastmasters and gained that experience. So that would be my preliminary response to that, but we will confirm and circle back on that. Let me make a quick note.
Thank you.
No, that's a great question. Thank you for that question.
I've got it, Romero, if you want to keep going.
Good. Yeah, I'm just making, I want to capture that. And actually, Kathy, if you just remind me of that question afterwards. This way. Yeah. Thank you. You just said that. I realized that. Oh, she told me that. I got it. I got it. So again, you could do separate pre-briefing communications for your contestants and your judges and functionaries, but it kind of makes more sense. And what I've seen done is that you hold them all on the same evening, and maybe you do your contestants during one portion, and then you do your judges and functionaries maybe like in the second half of your pre-briefing. However you want to organize that, or have everybody at the same time hear everything, it's really up to you. So once again, determine the date, time, and Zoom link for your briefing so that your functionaries and contestants are aware of it. Once again, for the judges, you'll cover the contest date, the time, and the Zoom link. You're going to remind the judges that they too have a certificate of eligibility and ethics that they need to complete to certify that they are in fact qualified to be a judge at that particular level. You'll briefly go over the contest rulebook, any changes that they need to be aware of or might not know of, as well as the online exceptions, the document that I referenced earlier that talks about the protocols for these online contests. You want to do a brief overview of the roles of the judges, review completion of the evaluation ballots, and that really is primarily what you're covering with the judges. Same thing with your contest functionaries. Difference there is that you're covering the timer and ballot counter forms primarily. Overview of the roles. And at that point, afterwards, you would review the contest script with all of you have it ready at that time. There is a sample contest script, international speech contest script, I believe, on our district resource page that you can borrow from and edit as necessary. So the standard technical setup that District 39 recommends is to have a contest room, and this is the area where contestants may, and everyone else for that matter, may initially be brought into once they're taken from the waiting room. And that is where the contest is actually held, where the audience members will be. There's also 3 breakout rooms, one for the contestants in which they will receive the briefing for the evaluation contest, where they and the sergeant at arms will actually do the evaluation portion. And in case for any reason, there's any reason for the contestants to be sequestered, that's where they go. Judges room is where all of the judges, the chief judge, ballot counters will be sent in order to tabulate votes as well as to receive their briefing. And we also have the option of setting up a tiebreaker breakout room, because the identity of the tiebreaker should be anonymous even from the other judges. And that's where the chief judge and the tiebreaker can then review anything that they have to cover. These are some suggested naming conventions. This is primarily for the Zoom masters. Very, very important when you come in as much as possible to rename yourself to whatever the required acronym is as soon as possible to make sure that A, the Zoom master knows what your function is, and if it's a judge, then they remain anonymous as possible. So in the case of the judges, ideally the chief judge has already assigned them a number ahead of time. So when they're coming on, they should keep their video closed, audio closed or off, and have renamed themselves as Judge 1, for example. And here again, for the rest of the people, it's okay to have the name, but you have the acronyms there for quick identification for the Zoom master. Throughout the contest, there will be instances where people are being moved back and forth between the main contest room and the breakout rooms. And so as the Zoom master and the contest chair are trying to ensure that everybody who's supposed to be there is there, this naming convention makes it a lot easier. We love group texts in District 39. It's a great way to communicate. We found it to be extremely efficient. And so these are 3 very typical group texts that are set up for contest functionaries. For the contest functionaries, they should have a group text consisting of the contest chair's mobile number, the chief judge, the Zoom master, and the sergeant at arms, just in case they have to get a hold of them in a means other than being able to talk to them during the contest itself. We very much, and again, it may be in a upcoming slide, but we prefer this over chat. The main problem with exchanging communication through chat is that a chat could unintentionally end up with the wrong person, and we don't want to be sending sensitive information to a contestant that was not intended for them. For the contestants, the contest chair, the chief judge, the Zoom master, and the sergeant at arms, really the same for the functionaries, is the recommended group text. For the judges, it's the chief judge, the ballot counters, and the timers, and that is the recommended group text for the judges to have when they are communicating their ballots. Now we're ready to talk about the day of the contest, but before we do that, RJ here is going to stop and invite everybody to take a break so that he has enough time to put more tea, warm up the tea, and get more water. And so invite everybody to take a 5-minute break. Our time is now 7:23. Let us reconvene at approximately 7:29, and we'll see everybody in about 5 or 6. Okay, our recording has resumed. I will still give everybody a few seconds to jump back in. Let me know that everyone's here. And I'm not just talking to myself, which would not be an unusual occurrence. I'm guilty of that plenty of times. Any questions from the first half of the presentation before we proceed to contest day? That's such a nice graphic. Hearing none, let's proceed. It is the day of the contest. Woohoo! We are ready. The contestants are ready. The functionaries are ready. What do we do? Again, want to make sure everybody can see the screen and see the slides. Right. We actually hold the day of contest briefings. These are designed to be 30 to 45 minutes, thank you, prior to the official contest start. They really should be a recap of what is going to be happening because everyone has already been briefed prior, ideally at a previous event, or they've been given lots of information and have had a lot of correspondence with the contest chair and the functionaries. So the functionaries are briefed, the contestants are briefed, the judges are briefed. And as needed, the tiebreaker judge is also briefed. So the contestants are briefed on, once again, on the speaking areas. In this case, what online they should be presenting in their speaking area. It's an opportunity for the Zoom master to do final audio and video checks. They're checking the camera height. They're making sure that gestures on the screen can be seen. They're checking for the audio and video clarity. They're checking for the lighting. They're addressing any disability or impairment aids that have been requested. There is a final recap on any technical issues, protocols, and what happens in the event of any technical issues or challenges. They're reminded of the who, what, how, and when of protests. Who, contestants or judges. What, eligibility, originality, or referencing. How do they do it? And when, which is prior to the adjournment of the contest. At that time, they either draw for speaking order, or that can actually be done if all the contestants are eligible to do it at the pre-contest briefing. So it could be one of two places. Traditionally, it's done at the contest, but the pre-briefing does allow for the opportunity, and I've known that it's been done where the order was actually determined at the pre-briefing. Typically, as of late, we've been using random.org or another randomizer application online, and some people still like to do the traditional playing cards, which you can do that even online by just being able to pick cards and then displaying them on the screen. The order for all of the contestants should be drawn, even if the contestant is not yet at the briefing, so that the order is set. If a contestant isn't present at the briefing, they can compete if they join the meeting prior to the introduction of the Toastmaster and they've notified the contest chair. So let me repeat that. A contestant that is not at the briefing can compete if they join the meeting prior to the introduction of the Toastmaster and they've notified the contest chair. They also have had to have submitted all of their required forms. The timing of the speeches are recapped with the contestants. Their opportunity to review the timing protocols with the timekeeper. The contestants are reminded that they cannot use any extra timing devices. They're advised that the timing will start with their first communication or interaction with the audience. So if they make specific audience, so they look right into the screen, there it is. That would be considered engaging with the audience. Timing starts. Disqualification times are reviewed with the contestants. And then we go over introducing the speech. We make sure to do the technical checks that the contestant can hear the Toastmaster and that they can pin the timer. We remind everyone that the introduction will consist of their name, the title of the speech, and the contestant name. And then we recommend to the contestant that they take a pause before starting, and that also creates a clear start to the speech. District 39 has determined that virtual backgrounds and screen shares are permitted as props, and that the contestants can use those. Judges are not to grade or deduct points based on technical issues of the presentation of the contestant. However, contestants are just advised, or should be advised, that the use of a background or a screen share, more so the background, could potentially create a distraction for the judge and potentially take away from their speech. So that's just something that they could be advised of, but they're not in any way discouraged to use that. They can use, once again, a background or a screen share. We want to ensure that contestants are aware of their surroundings and that any certificates, Toastmaster certificates, any Toastmaster pins or badges are not allowed. The contestants should not identify their status in Toastmaster in any way. And then we recap for them after the last speech how interviews will take place and how the award ceremony will be conducted. For the technical issues, in the event that you have a technical issue that is so severe where the chief judge decides, you know what, the contest can't continue, in that particular instance, the chief judge is going to stop the contest. Only he or she can do that. And then they will reconvene the contest with the contest chair at a later date or time if they feel that they can go ahead and fix the issue within that evening and it doesn't take too much time. The other issue would be that if judges are no longer able to evaluate the judging criteria. So if the question would be, well, what constitutes a severe technical issue? That would be it, where the judges can't fairly evaluate the contestants. So in the event of the technical issue, let's say that it's a single contestant with a technical issue and the contestant loses connection in mid-speech. The chief judge will pause the contest. He or she will instruct the timers to pause their stopwatches. And the contestant will be given as much time to return as possible. What District 39 is recommending is that the chief judge allow up to 3 to 5 minutes of stoppage duration. So in the event that there is a disconnect, and in the worst case scenario, the contestant has to completely reboot and reconnect, we are allowing 3 to 5 minutes for that to occur. In terms of the number of times that a single contestant can have a stoppage, we are recommending the 3 strikes rule. So that would be up to 3 tries. If after the 3rd try they have another stoppage, at that point the chief judge must disqualify them. The contestant has to resume their presentation at the point of the failure, and the chief judge will, or the contest chair will advise where that is. The timers will then unpause their stopwatches once the contestant resumes their communication with the audience. Timing signals remain the same. And a total of 30 seconds extra will be permitted in the event of stoppage, but it's just a total of 30 seconds. So it's not 30 seconds per stoppage, but 30 seconds total. So instead of being disqualified at 7.5 minutes, disqualification would take place at 8 minutes or 8:01. A technical issue does not result in the speaking order change. For example, someone may say, well, let's just go ahead and put this contestant at the end and let them work out their technical issues, and then we'll come back to them. It cannot change the speaking order. You have to resolve the issue with the contestant right then and there. And the speaker is not allowed to start over. They have to resume their speech at wherever the technical issue occurred. For a single contestant, once again, 3 strikes. So no further reconnection attempts after the 3rd occasion. No extra overtime, 30 seconds maximum. If you have a single contestant that has a minor technical issue, in other words, the judges are still able to evaluate the contest. You could have a dropout or a compression issue or maybe a little flashing, but the judges are still able to evaluate the contestants on all of the criteria, then the chief judge should not pause the contest. We also will verify with the contestants that audio, visual, Zoom connections are the responsibility of the contestants. So it's up to them to make sure that they have all of their technical issues addressed prior to the start of the contest. What happens if we start losing people for whatever reason? So in the case of the district judge, or the district contest rather, the chief judge, myself, gets hungry and decides to make a run to McDonald's. The backup chief judge would immediately take over. If we were to lose a voting judge, we'll continue, and that's because ideally we have enough judges, more than the minimum that are required, present, so that even if we lose one or two, and that's typically going to happen at the start of the contest, we have enough to still meet the minimum and have an effective contest. And if we have a loss of a tiebreaker judge, then the chief judge goes ahead and assigns someone else to take on that role. Here are the virtual backgrounds for the timer, what people will see when they're pinning the timer and what they'll see throughout the duration of their contest. These are available on the district website. And we have 2 timers for every contest, a primary and a backup, as I mentioned previously. Both of them will time all of the speeches. The primary timer is the one who gives the signals and records the time, and they actually submit the record. The backup timer has the camera off, but they're also recording times. If a primary, for whatever reason, has a technical fault or has another issue, the backup person then turns on their camera and then they take over the primary timer's role. Once again, timings start from the first verbal or physical communication with the audience, first engagement with the audience. Signals are kept on until it's time for the next signal. So as opposed to a typical club speech where you might have your green up for 10, 15 seconds until you see that the contestant has seen it and then turn it off. In this case, the timers are instructed that that background stays on for the entire time until it's ready, until it's time to move on to the next color. And red stays on until the completion of the presentation. We don't give a bell, we don't give a gavel or any kind of audio or visual signal if the person goes over time. We don't do the clicker for people who remember clickers. We simply just keep the background on until the speech is completed. And here's a graphic of your timing constraints for your table topics, humor speech, evaluation, and international speech contests. For your international speech, contestants must speak for a minimum of 4.5 minutes, and they will be disqualified at 7 minutes and 31 seconds, unless there is a technical issue, in which case they're given the additional 30 seconds. Timers, same thing. The technical issue protocols are reviewed with them, as well as what happens in the event that the chief judge pauses the contest. They're advised that on the timing record, it should reflect the times for each speech, record any instances if there is a technical issue, and a pause. And at the end of the contest, they will text or email, but again, we like group text, so our recommendation is text the time to the chief judge and the ballot counters. For an evaluation contest, the Sergeant-at-Arms is advised that they move with the contestants to the contestant breakout room. They set the timer for 5 minutes for no preparation once all the contestants are in the room, and they inform the Zoom master when 5 minutes are up. They ensure that the contestants put their notes away when it's an online contest at the end of 5 minutes. And then they stay in the room and they ensure that the contestants remain in view with cameras and microphones on, that they don't use any electric devices while they're waiting for their turn. And in the event that they see any activity that they feel may be problematic, they report those issues to the chief judge. Voting judges, during their briefing, the exception notes are reviewed with them. And they're reminded of the purpose of what they're doing as judges, which is to identify a distinct first, second, and third place winner. Each individual judge should not have a tie. When they are using the ballot sheet that is provided by Toastmasters, they can get it themselves or the chief judge can provide it to them. They should not be using any external voting systems. They can print it out or electronically fill it out because it is an interactive form. And once again, group text. So we do say group text or email. And the reason we left email in here is because of the fact that you might possibly have one or two judges that is not able to text for whatever reason, and they prefer to use the email or just can only do email, and you still want to have them and you can work it out. It's acceptable, but again, group text is really the way we want to go. So as much as possible, we encourage everyone to do group texts. And here is an example of what that group text would look like for a judge who was submitting their ballot. This is a format that I've used in both as a chief judge and as a voting judge, and it's worked well. So in this example, in this fictional contest, the person who has been designated as Judge 1 identifies himself. They are J1, and they've identified first place as Kathy O'Ray as the winner. No surprise there. With Denise Alder, a very close second, really just neck and neck. And way in the distance, third place is Jimenez. Shouldn't have even been in the contest. But again, that's how they would show the placements for this particular contest, sending that to the group, and then the chief judge and the ballot counters has that information. So in using the ballot sheet, we want judges to read the criteria. You're putting the contestant names on top. The Toastmaster is marking 1 minute of silence with a timer after each speech so that the judges have enough time to mark their ballots. After the final speech, all judges are advised that they're going to be moved to a breakout room along with the chief judge and the ballot counters. There they take as long as they need to complete ballots. And this is one of the things that, again, and we speak to this a little bit later on, is where the Toastmaster, the contest chair, everyone has to be reminded that it takes a bit of time for the ballot counters to, despite all these things that we do ahead of time to try and streamline the process. I've been involved in some judging that it's taken longer time, and typically a ballot counter might get confused with the scoring. And so consequently, again, you just want to allow enough time to make sure that the ballots are evaluated and counted correctly. The judges should fill in the first, second, and third. Go ahead and sign and print if you're able to do that, just like you would a regular ballot. And then once again, you group text your placements to the ballot counters and the chief judge. Once the judges have completed and has submitted, group texted their ballots, they are able to return to the contest room. Both the voting judges and the audience are briefed on the speaking order, and I've seen that done both as an announcement or in chat. So those are a couple of different options for your contest. They are advised of the speaking area that was briefed to the contestants. Once again, a speaking area is not a point of disqualification, but the judges could allow it to affect their marks if in fact they cannot see or hear the contestant if for any reason they were to step outside of the speaking area. Noted that the voting judges should be anonymous. They should arrive with their videos off and their microphones off, profile pictures off. I've seen that where they did the first two, but then they forgot to take off their profile picture because sometimes it defaults to that. So your judges should be aware of that. Once again, change their name as soon as they can to judge whatever number they're assigned. The Zoom master can admit them one at a time if it permits and the timing is there. Sometimes that becomes a little difficult, but then that is easier for the Zoom master to be able to manage the individuals as they arrive for the contest. They're advised of the technical issue process and how to lodge protests. They should be given a brief recap as to how to fairly mark their ballots. They should be looking at the camera and looking for the eye contact. They can consider the audience reaction and their own reaction. Once again, they do not judge on audio or video quality. They should not consider at all how long. They shouldn't stop looking if it's the contest or the presentation seems long to them. They should not all of a sudden start thinking, well, shoot, how long has it been? Or start looking at their watch. They just focus on the content of the speech. The timer is taking care of the timing issues. And the judges are reminded that they shouldn't consider age, gender, race, creed, nationality, regional accents, beliefs, or the past performance or reputation of a contestant. And I've seen that in the past where a lot of times someone get extra marks for consideration just because they historically have done well in past contests. That should not in any way be a consideration for them or immediately put them in a position of advantage over the other contestants. After the contest, the judges should destroy all their paperwork and votes. They should not discuss notes of the results. They should decline an invitation to give feedback to any of the contestants, and they shouldn't comment or criticize the contest in any way. And only at the conclusion of the contest can they change then their anonymous name back to their regular name once the contest is concluded. Pretty much the briefings for the tiebreaker judge is all the same. However, once again, a tiebreaker judge is not able to lodge a protest, and they do have a different ballot slip. They also rank all contestants rather than just first, second, and third, because in the event of tiebreakers, you may have to go, for example, to a fourth contestant in order to break a tie. So you use the tiebreaker judge and you have them rank all of the contestants. And because they're anonymous, they text their placements to only the chief judge. Your ballot counters. They will share their screen interactively with the chief judge in order to do a spreadsheet. And now with this particular portion, the protocols that we are going to list here are protocols and procedures that have worked well and have been successful for our district. And this is why we are recommending them. Having said that, we had a robust, I like that word, robust discussion at the last training as to what should a chief judge be doing versus a ballot counter doing. And here's the bottom line, is that the chief judge oversees the process. The ballot counters are the ones who are really counting the ballots, and the chief judge is affirming that the process is being done, and then they're really checking each other. So in so doing this, keep this in mind. And I have seen it done in different ways where the chief judge does a little bit more of an interactive role. And so again, if there is a slight deviation on this that may work for your particular contest, as long as it does not go awry or afoul of the contest rulebook, there is not a prohibition from doing things slightly differently. So that said, with the spreadsheet, the contestant names are on the top, the judge names are on the side. The ballot counters will receive a vote from each judge. Each ballot needs to be checked to make sure that it's valid. So this should contain all of the information you saw in that group text. You should see the judge's name and the 3 placements. And what the ballot counters will do is call out and confirm the votes from each judge. Here's a point where, again, there could sometimes be confusion. It is 3 points that is awarded for first place, 2 points that are awarded for second, and 1 point that is awarded for third. I've seen instances where that has been accidentally reversed, and you had 3 points for 3rd place and 1 point for first place. And so sometimes that could be the confusion that will create judging to take longer. So just keep that in mind. And once again, during the briefing, remind the ballot counters of how the votes are awarded so that it reduces that confusion. Once again, the chief judge verifies that there was no errors in the input, and the chief judge will review the tiebreaker ballot in the event that there is a tie. The chief judge or the ballot counters, and it's typically the chief judge, will check the timing sheet for time disqualifications. And then the ballot counter can complete and verify the winner results form, or again, in other instances, the chief judge may complete. And the ballot counter should complete and verify the notification of winners form. Once again, the chief judge may complete rather than the ballot counter. The important thing here, once again, is that there's a cross verification to make sure that these results are validated and they are accurate. Once the ballots are tabulated and validated, the forms are completed, the chief judge will then notify the contest chair via text or alternate means of the results. The other thing that I'll mention before I jump into this is the important thing with that, particularly the notification of winners form, is that that is then moved on to the next level. That's the one thing the district really wants to see, is to make sure that whether it's the ballot counter or the chief judge, that that form is completed and is passed on to the next contest level, so that the next level chief judge has that information. So what to expect at the start of the contest. So on arrival of everyone, the functionaries and the contestants, all the final checks are being done by the Zoom master and the contest team and the functionaries. There should be a script. There should be an agenda, ideally for the audience, and a script for the functionaries to follow. So if we're doing that, there's less chance for error, and it's easier for the Toastmaster and the contest chair and the contestants. So the meeting is called to order, typically by the Sergeant at Arms. The audience is reminded to turn off their video and microphones. There they are advised that only the Zoom host is able to record contests, so no other recording should be taking place. Introductions are made. The agenda is reviewed. Once again, the speaking order has been given to the audience and the judges, either right there verbally or it's done by chat. And once the contest starts, the script does have to be followed in terms of the introductions and the way they're done. So again, the recommended way to do that is to say our first contestant or speaker, second, third, whatever the case may be, is, and then we go into the introduction. If it's a speech, we give their name, the title of the speech, and their name. Toastmasters most definitely should not make any comments about the speaker or the speech as they're introduced or afterwards. And I've seen that done at all different levels. And many moons ago, I've been in Toastmasters for almost 30 years. And I think my second or third year into it, I was finally asked to be a Toastmaster at a area contest. And there I was, and I introduced the first speaker. I did it right. I was so proud of myself. The speech concluded, and I was just so impressed with that speech. Of course, I started talking about it and saying, "Oh my goodness!" And I started making a point about it. And Lorenzo Cuesta, who later on became a very well-known parliamentarian for District 39, longtime Toastmaster, a mentor of mine, was like, shh, no. And at that point, I just wanted to run off somewhere and just crawl into a hole and hide because I was so embarrassed. So every single Toastmaster has done it, and you can go ahead and encourage your Toastmasters and remind them, and some might still do it because they're so caught up in the contest. Just a good reminder, and part of the briefing is to remind your Toastmaster not to make any comments before or after the speech. Once again, the Toastmaster is going to call for 1 minute of silence from the audience, and that's really to allow the judges to complete their ballots. So it's not a directive to the judges to mark their ballots. It's a call for silence so that the judges can mark their ballots without any disruptions. Ideally, the Zoom master should remind everyone, again, and it's been done, to go on silent and to have their videos off, and just to monitor that so that it doesn't happen during a contest. And the Toastmaster calls for silence from the audience until after the last contestant, until all of the judges and the chief judge and the functionaries have left the contest room and have moved to the breakout room. There's been some Toastmasters in the past that are very eager to move on to the next portion of the contest, but again, they really need to make sure they and the contest chair and the chief judge make sure that all of the judges and the functionaries that need to do the ballot counting have left the room before they proceed to the next. Same thing for evaluation contests. Wait till the evaluation contestants and the sergeant arms have left the room. In the case of the test speaker, when they're about to be interviewed, request 5 minutes on the timer from the timers. The Toastmaster then interviews the test speaker. At the conclusion of that interview, they thank the test speaker and present them with their certificate of appreciation. Ideally, this whole process takes about 5 minutes. So this really calls upon the skill of the Toastmaster to conduct a good interview in order to be able to use up the majority of the time that it's taking the contestants to complete their notes, so there isn't a lot of dead air or dead space afterwards. So contestants are interviewed after the test speaker and after they've given their evaluations, and international speech contestants are interviewed after the last contestant has spoken and the judges have left the room. In the event that you have one contestant who is competing in more than one contest, for example, both the international speech and the evaluation contest, then depending on which interview takes place first, a contestant who's competing in the later contest or a contest that's taking place on another day should not be interviewed. And this is something to remind the Toastmaster of. They simply thank the contestant, they give him their certificate of participation and let everybody know that they will be interviewed after they compete in the other contest. At the conclusion of both contests, all of the contestants are thanked. Once again, the contestants are interviewed in their speaking order. Once the interviews are completed, the Toastmaster and the contest chair acknowledge and thank all the contest functionaries. And as time permits, award certificates of participation. Online is easy. You can do one that applies to everybody. Judges should remain anonymous, so we thank the judges just as a whole and not individually. After those take place, then we acknowledge our dignitaries. We then make any announcements as to subsequent contests that are coming up or any events that are happening in the relative or particular area, division, or district. And then we proceed to the awards. At this point, the Toastmaster returns control of the contest to the contest chair. The contest chair, having received all of the information from the chief judge, will then make any announcements if there were time disqualifications, or they may ask the chief judge to announce that. In so saying and so announcing that, we do not individually point out who was disqualified. We simply say that there was 1, 2, whatever the number were of time disqualifications. We then announce the winners in reverse order of placement. So if there were 3 or more contestants, then we announce the third place winner first, and then all the way through to second and first. If there were 2 or less contestants, we name the second place winner first, followed by the first place winner. Once again, announcing the next level of the contest dates. And at that point, the contest chair then adjourns the contest. And once again, this particular notification of contest winner form must be completed and passed off to the next level chief judge so that they have that information. At that point, the contest is concluded and the celebration begins. Woohoo! And this is when the Chief Judge Jimenez basically falls over and takes a nap. We mentioned earlier that there is a great resource available for our divisions and our areas in terms of contests. These are, look at this, there's just a plethora of all different kinds of links to resources and information. And so the link to this page, the District 39 contest resources page, is right there. And this is a visual of all the great resources that are available to you. Toastmasters International, and there's the link for that resource page, also has their contest resource page. And so all of the different documents, sources, past information, and resources for the various type of contests that are authorized by Toastmasters International are available on this page as well. So again, that this is I'm hopeful that this was a good overview for you to give you some refresher and thoughts and ideas as to how to best prepare and to actually administer your contest and put together your team. But again, if you want to get into a lot more details, you have all these resources available to you. And Kathy and I, and certainly Denise, are all available to you for any follow-up questions or that you may have. And we also want to thank, before we get into questions, Neil Coleman from District 99. He's the one who put this template together. And again, you know, when we were students and growing up and going to high school, we were told not to copy because that's plagiarism and we can get expelled for that. But once we turn adults and become Toastmasters, we suddenly find out that copying what someone else did is, once again, the sincerest form of flattery and the easiest way to get it done. Why reinvent the wheel? So thank you, Neil. And with that, any questions, anybody?